For chapter 11, the islands composition, you need to have Node.js and npm installed in versions 20 and versions 10 respectively. You also will need to have Git in order to clone the example repository. Now I'm already in chapter 11's islands composition, and in here you will need to run npm for installing the remaining dependencies. Once you did that, you can run npm start to run all micro frontends and the aggregation layer in parallel. The aggregation layer is exposed at localhost 5173. Going there, we'll show you the web shop with the add to cart, the cart itself, and of course further options like for payment. Everything done via the islands composition to get interactive when needed. From the code base, this uses an NX monorepo that's used implicitly, where we have our 3 micro frontends available as 3 apps and helper libs in the libs folder. We also have shared files to have all the dummy data for the web shop and helping data to know where the remotes sit. The structure of each micro frontend is quite similar, where we have an entry point together with a root to make it a standalone application as well. That concludes the example for the quick micro frontends. For chapter 11, you will need to have the following prerequisites fulfilled. You need to have Node.js in at least version 20. Together with this, you will also need to have npm in at least version 10. It usually comes with Node 20. And you should also have Git in order to clone the repository. Now, once you did this, you can actually also, just for convenience, run the run.sh script. This is in the case of chapter 11 a little bit more complicated, therefore I'll explain it. It actually first installs and starts the feed, which is then used to actually publish and retrieve the micro frontends. Afterwards, the 3 different micro frontends are installed, built, and published to the feed. So we will see that in a second. And then finally, we actually install the dependencies in the app shell and start that one. Now, what we will do is we will run this script, we will go into the web browser and we will actually try to retrieve the different micro frontends. And while we do this, we should first check out the endpoints. So what we want to call is the modules of this server, right? It will run on localhost 9000, and if we go to modules there, we should see how the micro frontends are published more and more. So let's run the script. Let's already go to our server and let's see, we already published here balance and settings, and now also text is published. So we got 3 micro frontends that are now running at this point in time and are known by the micro frontend discovery service. Now everything was running through, and we also have, of course, the app shell running at port 5173. So going in here, we'll open up the text application that we already know from the Spark composition. And it works pretty much the same, but of course the code base has changed. Now looking at this, the app shell is a little bit different to beforehand. It doesn't have the JSON here, so it's not just a static file that's known by the app shell, but the app shell dynamically goes now to localhost 9000 and retrieves this. So the feed URL is given here on top, and if we look where it does it, you see in line 219 that we have a fetch for the feed URL, just converts it to JSON, and for each module it just runs this little script here appending it to the document object model and then evaluating the script, which is a micro frontend. So for instance, looking at the balance micro frontend, we will see it looks quite similar to the one at the Spark composition, but now it has a well-defined lifecycle defined with the setup method that receives the API. And therefore we can just call register page. We don't need to call magic functions that reside on window. And we have everything quite well defined. Now we still use a generic lifecycle consisting of bootstrap, mount and unmount methods. But under the hood, this just allows us to use any kind of framework. Like here, we are actually mounting React, but in a different micro frontend like settings, we might still mount Vue. And this will also just work because the lifecycle is really independent of a specific framework. The dependence comes then in the implementation of the lifecycle, but that's left to the micro frontend. And this concludes the example of chapter 11 regarding a Siteless UI micro frontend solution.